Part 4. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 31. Compared with Orgrim's camp, the Don Quixote family's camp is much more powerful. It looks very grand and has all kinds of facilities inside. Orgrim and Beckman have been coming here a lot in the past few months. After all, Doflamingo, with the mentality of being on good terms with them, would organize adult parties every 3 days and have a lot of fun. People play sports or something, and then they invite Orgrim and the others to come with them. Regarding Doflamingo, a minor, who was messing around, Orgrim taught him many times with earnest words, but he was very honest physically. As long as Doflamingo invited him to a party, he would do it every time. I came here every time and had a great time. At present, Orgrim and the Don Quixote family are obviously in the honeymoon period, so the defensive force here does not stop them. They all greeted Orgrim and Beckman and made way for them. After wandering around the station, Orgrim and Beckman came to a huge swimming pool. It was obvious that Doflamingo, a guy who didn't do anything serious, was having a party again. The pool party was obviously very lively, with a large group of girls in bikinis partying. Orgrim even saw a girl waving an eye-catching object in the pool. Isn't that a bikini? Where did it come from? Of course it was taken off the body. Corruption, luxury, Orgrim first shook his head with emotion. But I like it, right? Before he could speak, Beckman answered. Ha 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 ha, it sounds like you don't like it. Orgrim patted Beckman on the shoulder and said. I like shit, damn, this devil fruit is so powerful that I can only watch it but not eat it. Do you think I will like it? Beckman cursed very unhappily. Orgrim looked at Beckman with some sympathy, and then said self-reliance and hard work, there is nothing that you cannot solve. I don't want to discuss this dirty topic with you. Instead of doing that, why not seize the time to master this power? When the time comes, won't it be useful? Beckman waved his hand and said. Orgrim asked reluctantly, do you think that thing can also turn into venom? You are really, it can kill people in both senses. It's amazing. I admire it. Get out of here, uncle, Beckman cursed unceremoniously. Just as Orgrim and Beckman were bickering with each other, Doflamingo, the young master, also walked over with a smile. He was still full of arrogance. Wearing a pink flamingo feather coat and orange sunglasses, it looks like he has grown a lot taller. He is indeed still growing. Phew 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 phew, Mr. Hammer, Beckman, you are here. Doflamingo said hello with a smile. Young master invites you, how could we refuse? Orgrim said with a smile. Beckman also nodded kindly to him. Then Orgrim put his arms around Doflamingo's shoulders and said with a smile, young master, I'm not talking about you. You who are young must pay attention to your health, lest you regret it when you get older. Doflamingo's face twitched slightly. This Orgrim was good at everything, but after getting to know him, he always liked to talk about his age, and he kept driving, which made Doflamingo a little unbearable. Taught Doflamingo dealt with Orgrim for a while. Then he no longer wanted to argue with Orgrim, and said directly, I invited you two here this time because there is something I want to tell you. Orgrim nodded, and then glanced at the sexy beauty standing next to Doflamingo. Doflamingo smiled when he saw this, and said, this is my new secretary, don't worry. Yeah, she has a very tight tongue. It turns out to be the young master's secretary. Orgrim nodded and responded. Well, it's different from the last time I saw him. I guess there's someone changed, but it's not Monet either. It seems that the young master trusts her very much. She must be very popular with you, right? After all, we men all like women with tight mouths. Orgrim joked again. Hey, you've had enough. Can you have some quality and stop talking about these bastard things? Beckman said helplessly. In Doflamingo's mind, there were 10,000 alpacas running around, and he was afraid that his little secretary wouldn't be able to bear it, so he quickly waved his hand and said, "Go and have fun with me. I have something to tell them both." Of course the little secretary understood what Orgrim said, and she was already so embarrassed. As soon as Doflamingo spoke, she breathed a sigh of relief, nodded quickly, turned around and left. After the others left, Orgrim, Beckman, and Doflamingo found a place to sit down, and the surroundings were quite quiet. Orgrim picked up a glass of fruit wine from the table, took a sip, raised his eyebrows, and said, "What's the matter, young master?" "Of course, it's about the two of you. What about the big business of 500 million Baileys? Shouldn't I be more concerned about it?" Doflamingo smiled and replied. As soon as he finished speaking, Orgrim and Beckman's expressions became serious. Beckman quickly asked, "Young master, you have found us. Any news about my sister's Niemann?" Doflamingo did not deny it, but he still said, "You two need to confirm it." As he spoke, he took out a photo from his pocket, handed it to Beckman, and asked, "Look at it, right?" Beckman took the photo and looked at the one on top that had grown a little. But it was still a familiar face, and he felt excited for a while, but soon, his expression became surprised, and even a little shocked. "What are you so dumbfounded about? Is it Niemann?" Orgrim frowned and scolded. Beckman's face twitched slightly, and then he said, "The head looks like Niemann, and the figure looks like, it's different from what we remember. It's been 2 or 3 years. Niemann will grow up too. She'll grow taller and so on. It's reasonable. Let me see." Orgrim took a sip of the fruit wine and took the photo from Beckman's hand. In the end, after just one glance, Orgrim spit out all the wine in his mouth. Doflamingo quickly turned away and avoided it. Sorry, Orgrim apologized first, and then looked at the photo again. As Beckman said, judging from the head, this is indeed the Niemann they are familiar with, but with this figure, too muscular? Are you Dwayne Johnson or Arnold Schwarzenegger? I even suspect you are the Hulk. You say, if you exercise in the past 2 years, can you achieve this effect? Orgrim asked Beckman next to him with some uncertainty. Beckman twitched the corners of his mouth, shook his head and said, "Impossible." "Is your photo a composite?" Orgrim looked at Doflamingo again and asked. Doflamingo was a little confused. "What does synthesis mean?" "Ahem, it's nothing." Orgrim quickly realized that he had made a mistake, so he waved his hand and said, "Actually, you two don't have to be so surprised. As far as I know, the person in the photo is a devil fruit user and he ate the muscle fruit." Doflamingo smiled and said softly, "Muscle fruit? Those who can." Orgrim and Beckman looked at each other, and then nodded in understanding. They are both ability users, so they both know how magical devil fruit is. In this way, it seems to make sense. "So, it seems that she is most likely Niemann?" Beckman asked. "At least the names are the same. The information I investigated shows that this is Caranda Niemann, the younger sister of both of you." Doflamingo nodded and said. As soon as Doflamingo finished speaking, Orgrim asked in a deep voice, "Where is she now?" Beckman also looked at Doflamingo with a serious expression, and there was a hint of excitement in his eyes. "It's a bit unbelievable to say it, she is now in the New World and is an officer under the great pirate Golden Lion Shiki." Doflamingo touched his chin and said. As soon as these words came out, Orgrim and Beckman were both shocked. "What the hell? Wasn't my sister abducted by human traffickers? Why did she join a professional pirate? Such a promising industry. It seems to be doing better than us. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates." Author, Zippo. Chapter 32. After being stunned for a while, Beckman touched his chin and said, "Golden Lion Shiji's words, is he the most powerful pirate in the New World? As of now, everyone thinks that he is the most promising pirate overlord after Rocks." Doflamingo nodded and said, "Golden Lion Shiji, he is ambitious and powerful, and he also has a very powerful force in the New World. Now, in this world, among the pirate forces, he is the top. There are only 3 people in the world, namely Whitebeard, Roger and Golden Lion. Although in terms of strength, there is also Red Earl Beloric Redfield, but this guy is aloof and arrogant, and he wanders alone. Generally speaking, there is nothing special. From the perspective of personal prestige, they are very powerful, but from the perspective of power, they are not top-notch. As for Kaido, Charlotte Lingling, etc., although they are also very powerful, but in Shiji, Newgate, and Roger, they were only second-rate. As for the later Yonko, red-haired Shanks, he is still just an intern on Roger's ship. There is nothing to say. But among the 3 Shiki, Whitebeard is not very ambitious, and he has no intention of becoming a pirate overlord. He just wants to have his own family and be a pirate freely. Roger has no ambition to dominate the world, he just wants to complete the feat of circling the Grand Line. In addition, he is now terminally ill, and it is even less likely that he wants to be a pirate overlord. Therefore, among the top 3 pirates, only Shiji is ambitious and works hard, and he wants to succeed Rocks as the pirate overlord. He has strength, prestige, and a powerful pirate fleet. He has all the factors. So he is currently in the eyes of the world. Shiji is the real leader of the pirates. Theoretically speaking, if Shiji continues to develop normally like this, he can definitely become Rock's second step by step, and even accomplish things that Rocks cannot do. Many people now they all believe that Shiji will continue to develop like this. But Orgrim knows that Shiji will soon become prosperous and decline. The key lies not in anything else, but in Shiji's appreciation of Roger. Yes. It is said that Shiji has an extraordinary preference and persistence for Roger. He has always fantasized about joining forces with Roger. He is even willing to sit on an equal footing with Roger and share the world with him from the bottom of his heart. But Roger is the guy. They treated Shiji as a bitch and didn't bother to care about him. In the end, Shiji fell into the hands of Roger, a son of the era, at the Battle of Advocate. Not only did he lose a lot of strength, but his head was also damaged. Hanging up a rudder. This was fine originally. If Shiji gave up, there would be no chance of reviving him. But this guy just got excited because of Roger, and went to challenge the Navy headquarters alone with the Warring States period. The 2 of them fought with Garp for 3 days and 3 nights, and finally made their way to Impelston City. Even if he escaped in the end, he became a disabled person, and then went to fight some unfounded monster. The evolution plan has completely sunk. I have to say that Shiji, a pirate boss and the seedling of the pirate overlord, ended up playing like this. There is no doubt that he is the kind of person who gives a good hand to a typical example of being beaten to a pulp. It has to be said that Roger is really poisonous. No wonder he ruined his life when he saw Roger. Shiji, the number 1 person in the pirate field, was tricked by Roger and became a tragic figure. Not to mention the representative. Even a naval hero like Garp, a righteous light, was the last person to be tricked after meeting Roger. The white-haired man sent the black-haired man to him. It was extremely tragic. This is really unexpected, Beckman smacked his lips and murmured with some emotion. I was originally worried about whether Neiman was still alive. Even if he was alive, he would be miserable, right? After all, he was captured by human traffickers. This made Beckman and Orgrim feel sad and regretful when they thought about this incident. The result is good. I am following the pirate bosses in the New World and doing well and doing better than them. I don't have to worry at all, okay. This sudden gap made Beckman and Orgrim feel uncomfortable. As far as I know, more than 3 months ago, Miss Neiman went to the town of Ogalan to look for you too, but by some mistake, you missed her. Doflamingo smiled and said. After listening to Doflamingo's words, Orgrim and Beckman looked at each other, and then they both smiled helplessly. What the hell is the trouble caused by those 29 million Baileys, otherwise we should all be prosperous in the new world by now. Orgrim smacked his lips and said. Beckman also said with clear logic: it should be said that it is all the fault of those damn bastard Navy. If they were not so troublesome, we would not have gone to sea so quickly. Well? You're very flexible in your thinking. You're right. It's all the fault of those bastard Marines. You have to remember this debt. You'll have to settle it with them in the future. Orgrim's eyes lit up and he spoke. After making some remarks, Doflamingo asked, "So, what do you two think now?" Orgrim was silent for a moment after hearing this, and then said, "The two of us went to sea largely to find the sister. Now we know her whereabouts, and we also know that she has not forgotten us and came to look for her. We, of course, cannot turn a blind eye." "That's right, we need to find her as soon as possible," Beckman said without hesitation. Doflamingo nodded when he saw this, and there was no surprise. "But, it's a bit inappropriate to go by like this, right?" Beckman hesitated again and said. Orgrim's brows also wrinkled slightly, thinking deeply in his heart. After all, the Golden Lion pirates are the Golden Lion pirates, and our Warhammer pirates are our Warhammer pirates. What will we do after we get there? And if we go like this, it will look like we are eating soft rice. Beckman touched his chin and spoke. Doflamingo rolled his eyes when he heard this. "Damn it, you are so blessed that you don't know how lucky you are. If I could have such soft food, I would go and eat it early. I think I am a great celestial dragon. Why did it get mixed up like this? Oh, what a tragedy of the times. I saw the doctor 2 days ago," Orgrim suddenly spoke. Beckman rolled his eyes and said, "Can you please pull it off? With your physical condition, you still need to see a doctor? If you have anything to say, just say it." Orgrim grinned, and said, "The doctor said that my teeth are not good, so I'd better not eat too hard." Beckman was stunned for a moment, and then asked, "You mean, are you going to eat this soft meal? You've put it all in front of me, why don't you eat it?" Orgrim said without hesitation. Sometimes he would also think about some questions, why other big guys came through time, either on Roger's ship, becoming brothers with the red hair, or drinking and talking with Rayleigh. He was on Whitebeard's ship, working as a salted fish with Brother Ma, relying on his father's reputation, traveling around the world, and acting tyrannically. No matter how bad he was still Garp's adopted son, Warring State's adopted son, or Zepha's biological son, or something like that. It's natural to join the Navy and become a naval admiral or even a marshal. I heard that some seniors directly traveled through time and became a celestial dragon. Look at yourself again, why have you become a country pirate in Bihai? People are so irritating. And looking at the world of pirates, you can't say that background is particularly important, but whoever dares to say that background is not important is simply looking for a fight. Among those who came forward later, there are basically big bosses standing behind them, right? Orgrim also understood very well that with the same talent, those with background and resources would grow up much faster than those like them. Now Shiji's thighs seem to be able to be hugged, so why don't you hug him quickly, absorb nutrients, strengthen yourself, and eat this soft meal that is easy to digest? As for self-esteem and face, in this sea, the weak are not qualified to talk about these. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 33. Of course, Orgrim wanted to eat this soft meal. On the one hand, it could grow quickly, and on the other hand, it involved future plans. Orgrim's original idea was to fight out from the North Sea, to the Grand Line, and to the New World. But now, there seems to be a better way out. Others don't know, but he has a forward-thinking vision. Although Shiji is in his prime now, he will be in decline in a few years. There are too many interests that can be arranged here, the biggest of which is to take over him. If he joins the Golden Lion pirates and becomes Shiji's capable subordinate, he will grow rapidly by taking advantage of his resources and advantages. With a certain level of strength, when Shiji starts to make stupid moves and bring himself to death, Orgrim can take advantage of the situation to stand up and wave the banner of Ski's heir. Maybe after Shiji fell, he absorbed his power. It is even possible to become a big force in one go. Isn't it unhealthy to not inherit this billions of fortune and insist on working hard by yourself? Thinking of this, Orgrim almost laughed out loud. God has treated me well. But soon, Orgrim calmed down again and joined the Golden Lion pirates to absorb Shiji's nutrients and strengthen himself. This idea was not wrong. But how to make this move is very important. First of all, Shiji is now at his strongest period. If you go to him, it will be the icing on the cake and you will not get much attention. After all, he has more than you but not more, and he has less than you but not more. And Orgrim themselves don't have much power, and they can't bring too much benefit to Shiji. Even if Niemann manages it, it will be somewhat embarrassing. If they want to inherit Shiji's position, they can't do it in name or in words. Smooth. Therefore, if you want to seek refuge with Shiji, but also want to absorb his strength and take over from him, you must find a relatively suitable opportunity. First of all, Shiji must be frustrated and his power must be hit to a certain extent, but the whole army must not be annihilated. Only if we can maintain our front line status. When the time comes, Orgrim joins in with the elite force of the Warhammer pirates, and can quickly restore Shiji's strength. In this way, the meaning will be different. After all, this is not the icing on the cake, but a timely help. Shiki may not immediately raise Orgrim as his own son, but he will definitely remember Orgrim's friendship and focus on cultivating Orgrim and others. Moreover, when Shiji is strong, if he joins the Warhammer pirates, he may be quickly assimilated. By then, it is hard to say who will recognize him as Orgrim as the boss. But if Shiji takes advantage of the situation when he is weak, the Warhammer pirates will most likely infiltrate the Golden Lion pirates on a large scale. Become Orgrim's hidden power. Therefore, in Orgrim's view, it is the best time for them to join in when Shiji is weak, but still able to stabilize the overall situation and maintain it for a period of time. And this time. After the Battle of Adver, Orgrim's eyes flashed with light, and he murmured softly. "What did you say?" Beckman didn't hear Orgrim's murmur clearly and asked curiously. Orgrim came back to his senses, waved his hands with a smile, and said, "It's nothing. I was thinking, even if we want to join Shiji we can't go there empty-handed. We'll be looked down upon for nothing. We need to have some strength." "You're right, you can't let people take it lightly," Beckman responded. "Say 1,000, say 10,000, in the end you still have to strengthen your own strength." Orgrim nodded and said. "Fighting out of the North Sea?" Beckman raised his eyebrows and asked. "Yes, Bihai is too small, and we can't increase our strength too much by hanging around here. Now that we have relatively elite subordinates, it's time to enter the first half of the Grand Route. There, let's show our prestige. Even if we want to join the Golden Lion pirates, we have to make Shiji take us seriously." Orgrim said with an evil smile on his lips. Doflamingo looked at Orgrim and Beckman and asked softly, "Are you leaving Bihai?" "Ha ha 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 ha, the young master can't bear to leave us?" Orgrim laughed and asked. Doflamingo smiled, nodded, and said, "To be honest, I do feel a little reluctant to part with it." In fact, Doflamingo was originally planning to use the power of Orgrim and the others to complete his dream of dominating the Dark World in the North Sea. Indeed, during this period of time, due to the cooperation between the two parties, Doflamingo also overcame the limelight of the Germa kingdom for a time, but after all, his position was not stable. Originally, Doflamingo wanted to wait for a while, and if there was a suitable opportunity, he would invite Orgrim and Beckman to join him. Take action and find a way to deal a cruel blow to the kingdom of Germa, not to mention killing them, but also maiming them. But now it seems that the North Sea is too small, and Orgrim and the others cannot stay. From there, after receiving the information about Coranda Niemann, Doflamingo began to have this suspicion. He also thought about hiding the news. But after weighing the pros and cons, he decided to tell the truth. Orgrim and the others. After all, this kind of news can't be hidden for a while, but it can't be hidden forever. Coranda Niemann is one of Shiji's cotters. She has no reputation now, but who can guarantee the future? Maybe 3 or 5 days later, after a big battle or something, she will be famous all over the world. Instead of doing this, it is better to sell it well first and let Orgrim and the others remember this favor. On the other hand, in Doflamingo it seems that Orgrim and others are not just creatures in the pool, and they will take off sooner or later in the future. If they get on Shiji's ship, they will grow up even faster. In the future, they will inevitably become well-known big shots. When the other party was in its final stage, he helped him and established some friendship. If he develops towards the Great Root or the New World in the future, he can also borrow the other party's strength. After all, the matter in the Germa kingdom seems not to be too big. It's too important. I am also very reluctant to let go of a good friend like you, young master. We will remember this favor in this case. Orgrim said with a smile. 500 million belly will be delivered later, Beckman also said with a smile. Furfural, Mr. Beckman, Mr. Hammer, with your words, I feel at ease, Doflamingo said with a smile. After chatting for a while, Doflamingo was silent for a moment, as if he was thinking about something. After a long time, he said, as friends, you two are about to leave. It's the North Sea. There's nothing I can do to help you in the Great Line, so I'll give you a parting gift. Young master, there is no need to be so polite. What kind of gift is not a gift? Orgrim put a smile on his lips and pretended to shirk. Domineering, Doflamingo said softly. Thank you very much, young master. Orgrim quickly responded without hesitation. Doflamingo looked at Orgrim with a somewhat surprised look, then laughed and said, as expected of you. Ha 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 ha, I just don't know what politeness means, Orgrim laughed and said. Beckman looked helplessly at Orgrim, a guy with no moral integrity at all, and then he couldn't help but laugh. If nothing else, at least he would follow this shameless person. You won't suffer a loss, right? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 34. In the port of Mignon Island, 5 mighty-looking ships were anchored here. On one of the ships, a huge whaling crossbow was installed. The silver-white crossbow arrows reflected a cold light in the sun, and looked very lethal. This is the flagship of Orgrim and others, the Dark Hunter. This is a large ship that can carry 300 people. It may not be considered a top-notch ship on the Grand Line, but in the North Sea, it is definitely a first-class powerful ship. It is also equipped with advanced artillery that Orgrim and the others snatched from the navy. It can be said that the firepower is also very fierce. Except for the flagship, the other 4 ships are also very good. They can carry 300 people, are full of firepower, and have strong combat effectiveness. The entire Warhammer pirates have stopped recruiting in the past few days. Not only have they stopped recruiting, they have also streamlined the original team. Those with weak combat capabilities, those who are not ferocious enough, and those who want to eat and die will all be driven away. Now there are only 1,500 people left. Judging from the size of the pirate group, it is already quite large. Even if it is placed on the Grand Line, it is still a pirate group with a large number of people. Needless to say, it goes without saying in the North Sea. In recent times, the Navy in the North Sea will avoid it after seeing the flag of the Warhammer pirates. By the way, the flag of the Warhammer Pirates has already been decided. 2 short-handled warhammers are crossed on a skull to form an iconic skull flag, and then a long-handled warhammer penetrates directly from the top of the skull's head and penetrates the entire skull. Overall, it looks very domineering. Orgrim and Beckman were standing in the port at this time. In fact, they had no nostalgia for Mignon Island. After all, this was not their hometown. And what pirates really miss is this rough and charming sea. Orgrim was holding a small notebook in his hand and reading it with relish. Beckman also had a small notebook in his hand and he was also looking at it carefully. What is recorded above is exactly about the cultivation method of domineering power. This was given to the Warhammer Pirates for free by Doflamingo on behalf of the Don Quixote family. After looking at it with a smile for a while, Orgrim felt that it was still very rewarding, and said, "Tisk, tisk, my young master is still very good at being a human being." "That's right." Beckman also nodded after hearing this. Then he turned to look at the boys who were loading supplies, and then continued, "He knows that we are leaving behind, and there will be no entangled interests in a short time, so we are no longer their hidden rival. Yes, although the industries are temporarily different, they are all making a living in the North Sea. The Warhammer Pirates are getting bigger day by day. Although they still maintain some cooperation with the Don Quixote family, Doflamingo still feels that somewhat stressful. Therefore, on some things, we have to think more and make more preparations. But things are different now. Orgrim and the others are leaving the North Sea. In a short period of time, there will be no entangled interests between the two parties. Naturally, they can sell well. And this kind of thing is rare in the first half of the Grand Line and within the 4 seas. If you enter the New World, it will be nothing. He knows that we are going for Shiji's Golden Lion Pirates. Once we join, you can grasp this power at any time. Instead of doing this, you might as well sell it to us." Orgrim grinned and said. "Yes, but this is just right. The stronger we are, the more confident we will be on this voyage, and the more weight we will have if we join the Golden Lion Pirates." Beckman nodded and responded. "Therefore, this favor must still be accepted. Doflamingo is still very good at doing business," Orgrim said with a smile. The two chatted for a few more words, and then Beckman touched his chin and asked, "You said, will Doflamingo leave North Sea?" Orgrim was stunned for a moment after hearing this, then glanced at the direction inside Mignon Island, and then said softly, "Yes, you can see that guy, he is also an ambitious guy, Bihai too small to tolerate him. Sooner or later, we will meet again on the sea. I just don't know whether we will be friends or foes when the time comes." Beckman raised his eyebrows and said, "As long as we remain strong, Doflamingo will not choose to be our enemy." Orgrim waved his hand indifferently and said. At this moment, Gangplank walked up to Orgrim in a few steps and said, "Master Hammer, you are ready. Brothers are ready at any time. Set off. You all know where we are going this time, right?" Orgrim patted Gangplank on the shoulder and asked. "Ha ha ha, of course, everyone is looking forward to it, the legendary Great Route," Plank also said excitedly. "No one would be unhappy, right?" Orgrim raised his eyebrows and asked. Gangplank said, "Of course, many people have no ambition to run out and just want to dominate the North Sea. However, all this garbage has been destroyed by us after being kicked out. Those who are willing to follow us are all people who want to go to the sea to achieve a career." "Well done." Orgrim nodded and said after hearing this. Then he looked at Mignon Island again. Doflamingo did not come to see him off. It seemed that many people on the island wanted his boss to leave quickly. "Ha ha ha ha, let's leave this dirty quagmire to you trash to fight for. A man's journey is on the romantic sea." Orgrim laughed and said. Then he waved his hand and said, "Get on the ship," and set off. 5 days later, in Marine Headquarters Marineford, in the office of Admiral Sengoku. At this time, Sengoku was holding a piece of intelligence just sent from Bihai. The news above was none other than about Orgrim and the others. News about the Warhammer pirates. A small fleet of 1,500 men? Have you successfully left Upside Down Mountain? It seems that these guys have recovered from their injuries and are ready to stir up trouble in the Grand Line, the Warring States General said softly. As soon as he finished speaking, Garp slammed the table and said, "Have these bastards finally entered the Grand Line? I'll take care of them." After saying that, Garp stood up, as if ready to leave to find trouble for Orgrim and the others. The Warring States General quickly spoke. "Garp, can you prioritize? Let's deal with the affairs of the New World first. If you ask me, just give up control of the New World temporarily. As long as our navy is not involved, they will be dog eat dog." "Don't you think that's the case this time?" Garp frowned and said with some dissatisfaction. "Yes, in the past 2 days, Orgrim has been busy entering the Grand Line, and some major events have also occurred in the New World. Shiji's Golden Lion pirates, and there was a fierce conflict between the John pirates. Captain John, like Shiki, both came out of the Rocks pirates. Shiki was ambitious and always wanted to dominate the world, while John was in love with treasures and other things. Not long ago, the two sides had a big battle, and Shiji was still very powerful. Then Captain John was scrapped. After annexing some of Captain John's power, the Golden Lion pirates have become more powerful, and seem to be unique in the New World." "Garp, what the hell are you talking about? If we temporarily give up control of the New World, what will happen to the participating countries in the New World?" the Warring States General reprimanded. "Indeed, with the current situation of the Navy, Garp's suggestion is right. We should slow down the attack on the New World, regroup, plan carefully, or even let the pirates bite the dog. Consume your own strength. But the problem is that a good proposal does not mean that it is the right proposal. There are some things that you know you cannot do, but you still have to do them. From the perspective of the Warring States period, you cannot do nothing in the New World. Otherwise, everyone will think that the Navy has given up on the New World. What about the participating countries in the New World? Turn around and join the pirates? This will be a very serious blow to the Navy and the world government. Therefore, even if there is no achievement, but the Warring States period still needs to show in the New World that our Navy has not given up on everyone, and everyone must persevere. Persistence is victory. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 35. In the waters at the entrance to the first half of the Grand Line, 5 pirate ships are sailing here. Near the Upside Down Mountain, Orgrim did not meet the persistent whale Rab. Of course, he did not think about it with the idea of whaling. "Originally, I wanted to try to see if I could make a fool of myself here and trick the Roger Pirates ship's doctor, Kurikas, away. It turns out that Kurikas has disappeared, and most likely he has boarded the Roger Pirates ship. Seriously, shouldn't you be responsible for this?" Orgrim was sitting on the deck of the ship, holding the domineering training manual given by Doflamingo in his hand, and said to Beckman helplessly. "You are the captain, okay. It's you who decides where to go and how to go." Beckman sat opposite Orgrim and said with the same annoyance. "Now we can only go to Sentin Island. You didn't prepare a few more route recording pointers?" Orgrim rubbed the corners of his eyes and said. "I'm not a navigator, so I need to prepare a few more record pointers for you," Beckman cursed. When Orgrim heard this, he patted his thigh and said, "That's right, this problem does not lie with the two of us, but with the navigator." Beckman was stunned for a moment, then nodded without restraint and said, "You're right, it's the navigator's problem. Damn it, when we get to Shenting Island, I'm going to kill this navigator and find 2 powerful guys." Orgrim said angrily. In this way, the 2 unscrupulous guys agreed that the blame should be shouldered by navigator. While Orgrim and Beckman were chatting and spanking, a news the bird flew to the observation deck, and then dropped a newspaper. Standing on the observation deck, Plank also dropped a few Baileys into the newsbird's backpack, and then the newsbird printed the newspaper very humanely. Plank nodded, indicating that he had done a good job, and then flapped his wings and flew away. Not long after, Plank happily ran down from the observation deck and rushed towards Orgrim and Beckman. He shouted, "Master Chui, second master, look at this." Orgrim looked back at him, then smiled and joked, "What are you doing in such a hurry? How? Has the Navy headquarters elected a new marshal? Or is there a big explosion in the New World?" "It's not that, Master Chui, there is news about the Golden Lion pirates, and news about Lady Neiman," Plank said quickly. Orgrim was stunned for a moment after hearing this, while Beckman quickly took the newspaper and started reading it. The Golden Lion pirates and the John pirates have launched a fierce battle in the New World. It has been confirmed that the treasure captain John is dead. The Golden Lion Shiki has annexed most of the John pirates, and his power has increased greatly, Beckman read quickly. It seems that Shiji is really going to dominate the New World, Orgrim smacked his lips and said. At the same time, Beckman also took out a stack of reward orders from the newspaper. The first reward order had the figure of Shiji printed on it. With his long golden hair and domineering posture, flying in the sky, even if it is just a piece of paper, you can feel his power. Flying Pirate Golden Lion Shiki, the bounty is 2.736 million Baileys. Tisk, tisk, compared to this boss, you are simply a scumbag. Beckman smiled and smacked his lips and said. Orgrim ignored Beckman's teasing and said before, he was equal to Whitebeard Edward Newgate, but now he has risen a bit, and he is the leader. So coquettish. Although it has only been a few years since Roger dominated the Grand Line and became the Pirate King, in fact, the current bounty system is not particularly explosive. Whether Whitebeard or Roger, both have more than 2 billion belly, Shiji's is already close to 3 billion berry, which is the only one in the New World. However, Orgrim felt that Shiki would only be ahead for so long. When Roger boarded Ravdru and became the Pirate King, his bounty would explode on the spot, making him the pirate with the highest bounty in history. There will be a reward of 5.5648 million Baileys. Then Shiji will go to Impelton for further training. After he comes out, he won't do any big things. He has become a legend, but the bounty has not increased much. On the contrary, Newgate and others who were left behind by him will continue to exert their efforts. By the time of the war, Whitebeard's bounty will already be as high as 5.046 billion belly. As for Kaido and Charlotte Lingling, who are still second-rate players to Shiji, they also have huge bounties of more than 4 billion belly. Even now, in Shiji's opinion, Shanks, the little guy on Roger's ship, will become a man with 4 billion Baileys in the future, and everyone will be taller than him. Yes, Beckman nodded, then looked at Orgrim and said, "You said before, let's join the Golden Lion pirates, and then find a way to take over Shiji's plan. Now it seems that he will not collapse so early, right? Still going? Go ahead, even if it doesn't collapse, you can still hug it?" Orgrim said this first, and then a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he continued, "What's more, the one who laughs first may not laugh last. Who can say for sure about such things as fate? Maybe in a few days, did he explode? You are the captain and you have the final say." Beckman didn't care that much, and casually opened the second bounty order. It wasn't the other cotters of the Golden Lion pirates. I guess they didn't increase the bounty this time, right? The people on this bounty order, it is Karanda Neiman, the sister of Orgrim and Beckman. In the photo, Neiman's muscles are bulging all over her body, and she is holding a mace in her hand. She looks like a girl. But that face is pretty cute, what a muscle thug. Tisk tisk, it's so cruel. Beckman's face twitched slightly and he spoke. We haven't seen each other for just over 2 years. What happened to that little loli who followed us and kept shouting Uni-I-chan and Uni-I-chan? Why did he become so fierce? Bring it to me quickly, Orgrim snatched the reward order from Beckman, who looked sentimental. After just one glance, Orgrim also felt some toothache. He suppressed this feeling and whispered, "King Kong Barbie Karanda Neiman, the bounty was 72 million belly." After reading this, Orgrim turned his head and glanced at Beckman. Beckman felt a little uncomfortable with his gaze. He frowned and said, "What are you doing? Your eyes are a little malicious." "Ha ha ha ha, I was just thinking, Neiman's bounty is more than 70 million belly, and your bounty is only 50 million? Do you really have the nerve to meet Neiman?" Orgrim joked with a smile. Beckman didn't care about this at all. He waved his hand and said, "First of all, let's clarify our position. Okay, aren't we going to eat soft food? If that's the case, what are you afraid of? Secondly, the road is still long. Maybe next time, my bounty will be higher than yours, so, don't be complacent, okay? You smile so brightly, I can't help but want to hit you." "Ha ha 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 ha, are you being arrogant?" Orgrim said with a smile. "You bastard," Beckman cursed, and purple venom began to drip from his hands. Okay, I won't talk anymore." Orgrim accepted it as soon as he was satisfied. Then he ignored Beckman, but proudly took Neiman's bounty and said with a smile, "Tisk, tisk, my sister is going to be successful, he's about to become a big pirate." Filu's 18th anniversary brand upgrade rewards readers. Deposit 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Grab a deposit now. Activity time, August 10th to August 20th. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 36. Shengting Island is one of the giant islands on the Grand Line. In terms of area, it is also ranked among the top in the world. It is said to be a giant island, but in Orgrim's view, this island is not inferior at all. On a small continent. However, the natural environment of Shengting Island is not very good. Most of the land on the entire island is desert, and its value is not very high. But the oasis in the desert gave birth to a unique culture and inherited a kingdom with a very long history. That is the Kingdom of Alabasta, a famous desert country in the world and a very famous military power. The royal family of Alabasta is the Nefertali clan. According to legend, the Nefertali clan was one of the descendants of the 20 kings who founded the world government 800 years ago, but they did not immigrate to Marijoya. So it is not considered a celestial dragon. But the bloodline has always been passed down, so the status of the Kingdom of Alabasta in the world government has always been somewhat special. Even the celestial dragons must give some face to the royal family of this country and cannot trample on them at will. Nowadays, the royal family of Alabasta is the Nefertali family, but this does not mean that the Nefertali family has been the royal family of Alabasta since ancient times. The history of this country is simply incredible. Some O'Hara scholars even say that this country is the first country in human history. As early as the ancient times, more than 4,000 years ago, human ancestors established this long-standing country on Shengting Island. More than 3,000 years ago, Alabasta established its capital, Albina, and built a splendid royal capital and palace there. This palace is still in use today. According to research, the Nefertali family should have become the royal family of Alabasta more than 800 years ago. Later, they also boarded the express train of the world government. They have the status of 20 royal descendants. For more than 800 years, since then, he has been firmly established in Alabasta. Behind its long history, Alabasta has a very strong international influence. On the one hand, it is because it has the longest history in the world and is known as the cradle of human civilization. On the other hand, they are the descendants of 20 kings, so they are extremely valuable. The last point is their status as a superpower. They possess extremely powerful military power. In the capital Albina alone, there are as many as 600,000 standing professional soldiers. What is this concept? This means that the number of troops in the capital of Alabasta far exceeds the average population of other countries, not to mention the garrisons in other cities. The Nefertali clan in Alabasta can really be said to have the world's soldiers and horses, with more than 1 million under their command, and with a single order, thousands of heads will fall to the ground. Theoretically, no one can defeat their army in Alabasta itself. This is the main reason why Alabasta has been able to maintain its national unity for more than 4,000 years. Their kingship can be replaced internally, but it will never be seized by outsiders. Although Alabasta's army is eye-catching, Orgrim is not very interested in it. This kind of thing should be left to the future king, Shishibukai Sand Crocodile. I have no interest in pursuing the country here. Of course, Orgrim does not have nothing to desire from the superpower Alabasta. At this time, Orgrim is in the famous port of Alabasta, rapeseed flowers. It is full of cultural atmosphere that is completely different from that of the North Sea. It is passionate and unrestrained. The desert has brought wild culture and perseverance to the people here. There are 2 statues in the market at the port, one of a jackal and an eagle. Orgrim looked at the 2 statues, silent, seemingly thoughtful. What are you thinking about? Beckman, wearing a gas mask, walked behind Orgrim and asked. Their pirate group was replenishing some supplies. A voyage on the sea requires a lot of preparations. Do you know anything about Alabasta? Orgrim asked. Ha 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 ha, are you testing me? Isn't that natural? After all, this is the oldest country of mankind, Beckman said with a smile. Then you should also know that according to legend, jackals and falcons have been the patron saints of Alabasta since ancient times. The royal family of Alabasta have been blessed by the gods for generations, right? Orgrim smiled and asked. Beckman nodded and said, yes, this kind of mythology is spread all over the world. After a pause, Beckman said with a smile, it used to be a myth, but now, many people know that the so-called patron saints are actually just 2 animal-type devil fruit ability users, right? You're right, they're just 2 animal-type devil fruit users. Orgrim smiled and nodded. So what are you thinking? Beckman smiled again and asked jokingly. I'm thinking, when Orgrim said this, he paused for a moment, then looked away from the statue and looked into Beckman's eyes. Then he continued, what power has allowed Alabasta to pass on 2 devil fruits from generation to generation for more than 4,000 years? Beckman. As soon as Orgrim finished speaking, Beckman was stunned for a moment. Ever since the 2 became devil fruit users, they have been collecting intelligence and information in this area, relying on the power of the Don Quixote family and the power of their Warhammer pirates in the North Sea. Beckman also knows a lot of secrets about devil fruits. First of all, the origin of devil fruit is unknown. People who eat this fruit will become landlubbers, and of course, they will also gain strange abilities. And when the esper dies, theoretically speaking, the devil fruit will be randomly regenerated in any corner of the world, waiting for the next owner. So the question is, how did Alabasta manage to keep the jackal fruit and the falcon fruit in the royal family for more than 4,000 years? Forget it if you don't want to, but you'll be frightened when you think about it. There seems to be some great secret in it. You mean, perhaps the Nefertari family has the power or means to control the birth of devil fruit abilities? Beckman asked in surprise. Orgrim had an evil smile on his lips and said, look, did we find a treasure? Interesting, if we could master this kind of power, it wouldn't be of much benefit to us. Beckman's mind was flexible and he immediately thought about the benefits and advantages brought by this power. In the past, under normal circumstances, when fighting with the enemy, if the opponent was a devil fruit user, it would be best if he could surrender. If he could not, it would be best. You can only kill it, and you won't get any benefits. But if Alabasta can have the technology to control the rebirth of devil fruits, maybe you can get the power of your opponent's devil fruit. This is a cumulative process. As time goes by, even if the success rate is not particularly high, a powerful force can still be accumulated. But soon, Beckman calmed down again and said you should not be the only one who can think of this, but so far, Alabasta is still Alabasta, Orgrim, and those countries in the past. It's different. Alabasta is a superpower. The Nefertali clan has more than 1 million soldiers under its command. One person's saliva is enough to drown us. Don't mess around. Ha 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 ha, you are right, but I don't believe it. Can the king of Alabasta, Nefertali Cobra, still be running around with his army of 1 million people all day long? Orgrim said with a smile. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 37. The Nefertali clan has been able to stay in Alabasta for more than 800 years, and it can be said that they have many wise and powerful emperors. Take the big boss from more than 800 years ago. His ability to form a world government with the other 19 kings is enough to prove how capable he is. In the past 800 years, many figures must have emerged, gradually developing Alabasta from a long-standing ancient country into a super military power. However, in this generation, Orgrim actually looks down upon Nefertali Cobra, the king of Alabasta. This guy really loves the people and can be called a kind and good king. However, he was born at the wrong time. If he had not been born in such a turbulent era, he might have become one of the benevolent emperors in Alabasta who would go down in history and be loved by the people. But now, the great era sweeping the world, which no one can avoid, is coming soon, and Nefertali Cobra does not seem to be suitable for this era. Regardless of how prosperous Rapeseed Port is now, even Orgrim and others behaved themselves after coming in and did not dare to act recklessly. After all, there is a strong military power here. Alabasta's reputation is still very intimidating. But it won't be long before Roger becomes the Pirate King and starts the Great Pirate Age in Rogtown in the East China Sea. Alabasta's current superior geographical location will make it the forefront of the Great Pirate Age. It is destined to be at the forefront. We have to accept the nightmare of being baptized by the tide of the times. At that time, countless pirates swarming from all over the world will gather at the beginning of the Grand Route, divide it into 7, and follow the 7 routes to conquer the Grand Route. Alabasta, on the other hand, has to take the lead and bear 1/7 of the pressure. As we all know, the newer the pirates are, the more unscrupulous they will be. When the order breaks down, who cares whether you are a superpower or not? The swarming pirates will continue to tear apart this huge ancient kingdom. Down with flesh and blood. Over time, of course, Alabasta will be unable to cope with it and its national strength will decline. Then the guy Crocodile took advantage of the situation and wanted to use cunning means to gain the power of this country. Judging from Crocodile's ability to become a national hero, it is true that at that point in time, Alabasta's military strength was much weaker. And Crocodile would definitely be able to take Alabasta if he didn't have the protagonist's straw hats to cross him in the end. From this point of view, we can see that Nefertali Cobra may be a benevolent king, but he is definitely not a wise king. If he had been powerful, he wouldn't have made Crocodile look like that. From Orgrim's point of view, the biggest weakness of Cobra, the king of Alabasta, is that he is too kind. As a king of a country, he is hesitant and not decisive enough when things happen, and the rebels are fighting at his doorstep. And still place hope in that illusory peace, you are simply a great dreamer. All signs point the conspirators to this guy Crocodile, but he feels that he is the Shishibukai, an ally of the world government. Everyone wears the same pants, so he should not do such things, just not fight back. What the hell is this if not naive? It's weird if Crocodile doesn't win, okay. It's literally free of charge. In fact, as Orgrim thought, Alabasta does possess this mysterious technology. Not only Orgrim has coveted this technology, but the world government has also been coveting it for a long time. However, Alabasta has a special status. It is said that it is the descendant of 20 kings. It seems inappropriate for you to use force. What's more, Alabasta is very powerful and has an army of millions. It may not be able to do it with force. If it can do it, the losses will be too great. The world government is also unwilling to use this lose-lose method to obtain this technology. Therefore, for hundreds of years, this matter has not been resolved, and it has been delayed anyway. There is even a rumor among the top leaders of the world government that the deep-sea prison, Impel Down, and Impelton were actually originally established to be based on this technological extension of Alabasta. But it never succeeded, and Impelton slowly became the deep-sea prison it is today. If you think about it carefully, this statement seems to be somewhat credible. There are many prisoners imprisoned in Impelton, but the world government rarely executes them. What is the significance of this? The most widespread rumor in the sea is that the world government is worried that the devil fruit abilities in the hands of these evil parties will spread again and fall into the hands of new evil parties, bringing disaster to the world again. And if we look at the rumors about Alabasta, maybe the world government wants to kill them after getting Alabasta's technology. Wouldn't it be a great harvest then? But these have nothing to do with Orgrim now, and he has a vague idea in his mind. Since Nefertali Cobra has an obvious weakness, and this weakness has not yet been exposed in this era, maybe he can take advantage of it. You have to find a way to get Te Niang's vote, Orgrim calmed down and said. Beckman smiled helplessly when he heard this, and said, "Are you really so bold that even 1,000,000 soldiers don't take it seriously? What are you afraid of? Why do you think you are a pirate if you are so timid?" Orgrim laughed and said. Then he patted Beckman on the shoulder and continued, "What's more, although Alabasta's military is very powerful, there does not seem to be any particularly strong masters in this generation. In terms of top strength, there is a big gap, which is our opportunity." As Orgrim said, Alabasta is not without ruthless people. Under normal circumstances, their patron saints, the two animal-type devil fruit ability users, will basically awaken from generation to generation. And apart from the two of them, there will be other masters. After all, Alabasta has a large population, and it is reasonable to produce one or two geniuses. But I don't know why, but the top power of the Alabasta kingdom in this generation does not seem to be very good. In this way, it can even be said to be very rubbish. This also gave Orgrim an opportunity to take advantage of. Beckman nodded, feeling that Orgrim's statement did have some merit. At this moment, Orgrim patted Beckman on the shoulder and said confidently, "It's time to use your excellent brain. Come on, come up with a reasonable plan for me and let's have a fucking vote." "You are really looking for trouble for me," Beckman complained. But soon, he laughed again and said, "But who told you to be the boss? Since you want to do it, you must first get some information." Orgrim smiled when he heard this, and called out to the boys who were carrying goods behind him, "Glank, Hank, you two come here." Soon, Hank and Gangplank ran away came over. "Master Chui, what are your orders?" Plank asked. "You two, take people with you and ask me for information about Alabasta, especially the Nefertali clan," Orgrim spoke. Beckman then emphatically added some directions that should be focused on, and this matter was initially settled. After Gangplank heard this, he looked a little stunned and asked, "Master Hammer, are we going to cause trouble in Alabasta?" "Ha ha ha, it's just tentative, what? Are you afraid?" Orgrim laughed and asked. Gangplank thought about the million-strong army in Alabasta, then swallowed, with a flash of ruthlessness in his eyes, and said, "What are you afraid of? There is only one left and right life. Do we pirates still care about this? That is, Mr. Chui, I will chop whoever you tell me to chop," Hank also said carelessly. "Ha ha ha ha, okay, you are worthy of being my subordinate of Orgrim," Go ahead and investigate as clearly as possible. Orgrim clapped his hands and said. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 38. Rapeseed Flower is a port city with a long history. It is very prosperous and naturally has many pubs, large and small. At this time, Orgrim and Beckman were sitting and drinking in a tavern. Ha 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 ha, you can't control your abilities well, it's so inconvenient even to drink. Orgrim said with a smile. Beckman lifted the gas mask slightly, took a sip from the wine glass, then put the mask back on, and looked at Orgrim with some dissatisfaction. Then he said, how about I take off the mask and drink? Within half a day, the entire rapeseed flower will turn into a dead place. It's better to say goodbye. I don't want to drink among a pile of corpses. Orgrim waved his hand and said. 8 days have passed since they landed at Rapeseed Port. After all, Gangplank and Hank are not professionals engaged in intelligence. Although they have gradually figured it out these days, some things, but it did take a lot of unnecessary time. While Orgrim and Beckman were drinking and chatting, something interesting seemed to happen in another corner not far from them. Things. Guest, we really don't have the non-alcoholic whiskey you mentioned here, the bartender looked at a man sitting at the table and said in embarrassment. It's not too far from Whiskey Peak, right? You don't have any of their specialties, the man asked listlessly. No. Maybe you remembered something wrong? Whiskey Peak does not produce alcohol, the bartender said awkwardly. Whiskey Peak is also an island near the Gateway Sea in the first half of the Grand Line, not too far from Alabasta. Although this island is named after whiskey, in fact, it is not a famous wine-producing place, but a paradise for bounty hunters. Many bounty hunters gather here, waiting for the new pirates from the four seas to arrive, and then find ways to eat them. For now, that place is not prosperous, but when the Great Pirate Era begins, countless bounty hunters will gather there, and it can be considered a good industrial chain. Ah. Yeah, the man frowned slightly, feeling that he might have made a mistake. We have very good whiskey here. Would you like to try a glass? The bartender recommended again. The man was a little moved, but soon he shook his head and said, no, I have stopped drinking. You've given up drinking. What are you doing in the pub? Isn't this looking for trouble? Are you here to cause trouble? The bartender complained in his heart, with a forced smile on his face, and asked again, does the guest have any other needs? Juice, any recommendations? After thinking for a while, the man asked. How about cactus juice? This is our Alabasta specialty, the desert cactus, very sweet, the bartender responded quickly. Sweet, I instinctively hate this taste. Is there anything bitter? Just like this life, the man said very critically. The bartender was stunned at this time. Why are you so difficult to serve? Ha 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 ha, that guy is quite interesting. Orgrim listened to these conversations and laughed and said. Beckman also shook his head in amusement and said, most likely he is a pessimist. Maybe the two of them spoke too loudly and were heard by the man over there. But the man didn't feel embarrassed, but said seriously, no, if you have to say it, I am an instinctive person. Hoping to follow instinct as much as possible. Instinct? Orgrim smiled, then pointed to his wine glass and continued, just now I felt that you instinctively wanted to order a glass of whiskey. Why don't you follow your instinct? A look of pain flashed in the man's eyes, and then he said a little lonely, although I pursue instinct, if I really don't have any persistence, wouldn't I become a beast? You are really a contradictory person. Orgrim smiled and said. I feel the same way, but humans are such contradictory creatures, aren't they? Although it is basically useless and even very harmful, it still has an appendix. From a physiological point of view, it is full of contradictions. The man grinned and said. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then glanced at Beckman again and asked, is this a philosopher or a biologist? Maybe a medical scientist? Beckman joked with a smile. As soon as Beckman finished speaking, the man straightened his body slightly and said, "This gentleman is very discerning. I am indeed a doctor." "No, ex-doctor." "Former doctor," Orgrim repeated again in surprise. "Before I introduce myself, my name is Norman Nightingale, from the Kingdom of the Drum." Nightingale, who claimed to be a former doctor, spoke up. Orgrim and Beckman didn't react at all, they didn't know this guy at all. Beckman basically didn't know what the Drum Kingdom was, but Orgrim did know a little bit. It seemed that that country was an internationally recognized medical power and had many powerful doctors. But Orgrim's knowledge was no more than that. He did have some understanding of the Drum Kingdom more than 20 years later. Now, don't know anything. After hearing Nightingale's words, the bartender who was standing there was very shocked and asked Norman Nightingale, "Are you Nightingale, the famous chief national doctor of the Drum Kingdom?" "No, it's the former state doctor." Nightingale waved her hand and said. Orgrim and Beckman looked at each other again, and then Orgrim asked the bartender, excuse me, what does the national doctor mean?" The bartender was stunned for a moment after hearing Orgrim's words, and then said, "This guest is not from the sea area, is he?" It seems that he did not recognize that Orgrim is a great pirate with 150 million belly. Orgrim nodded naturally and said, "Yes, I come from the North Sea and just entered the Grand Line not long ago." "Yeah?" It's not surprising that the national doctor is the signature character of the Drum Kingdom. As we all know, the Drum Kingdom is a major medical power in the world. It has many powerful doctors and masters advanced medical technology. In this country, the most powerful group of doctors will be awarded the honorary title of national doctors by the royal family. They often represent the country on missions to neighboring countries, conduct medical visits to the royal family, and treat some difficult and complicated diseases. During this period, they will form a team, and Mr. Nightingale is the leader of this team. The bartender introduced him with great admiration. "Is the former chief, Nightingale still reminded me. Ha 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 ha, that's awesome. I didn't expect him to be a big shot." Orgrim said with a smile. "It's a former big shot," Nightingale said with a forced smile. "Bartender, serve him the most unpleasant juice here, the bitterest kind, preferably bitter melon juice." Orgrim first gave instructions to the bartender, and then asked Nightingale, "Are you interested in sitting over and having a drink?" Nightingale hesitated slightly after hearing this. At this moment, Orgrim grinned again, showed a slightly evil smile, and said, "By the way, I haven't introduced myself yet. I am Kazgaros Orgrim, he's a pirate. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 39. Nightingale, who was initially hesitant, actually laughed after hearing Orgrim's self-introduction. "So this gentleman wearing a gas mask must also be a pirate, right?" Nightingale asked with a smile. "Ha ha ha, that's right, Ben Beckman." Beckman also smiled kindly and introduced. "I never thought that one day I would be invited to have a drink with a pirate, bitter melon juice." Nightingale laughed at himself. But he still stood up, walked to the table of Orgrim and Beckman very calmly, and sat down. After all, this was all that was said. If he didn't come, doesn't it make you look timid? Just pretend, I'm going to pretend. You are so courageous, knowing that we are pirates, yet you dare to sit here. Orgrim smiled and patted Nightingale on the shoulder, teasingly. Nightingale also smiled and responded, "I don't think the two of you are extremely evil people, living like pirates in the industry. I'm afraid it's a last resort, right? Are you a great fortune teller?" Orgrim asked with a smile. "Former great fortune teller," Nightingale responded with a smile. "Ha ha 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 ha, but you guessed it wrong, neither Orgrim nor I are good people, they are extremely evil. Well, that's exactly what the world government and navy have said about us, and, Beckman hasn't finished speaking yet. Orgrim then said, and we are not a last resort, we are interested, the real evil party. Nightingale was stunned for a moment, then waved his hands and said, you two don't have to scare me like this. As soon as he finished speaking, the bartender seemed to remember the name of Khazgarot Orgrim, and looked at Orgrim in horror. Orgrim waved his hand at him and said, what are you still waiting for? Go get the bitter melon juice. Yes, yes, I'll go right away, the bartender replied in a panic. When he left, he accidentally bumped into a table nearby. The bartenders in the tavern should be considered very well-informed people. They must be very discerning, otherwise they will offend. People who shouldn't be offended are likely to cause big troubles or even kill lives. Nightingale naturally knew this, so he panicked a little after seeing the bartender running away in panic. Ahem, forgive me for asking, the bounty for both of you? Nightingale cleared her throat and asked as if nothing had happened. 50 million belly. Beckman smiled and said in a wicked way. Nightingale heard a drop of cold sweat on his forehead, smiled awkwardly, and said, it's really amazing. I'm not that powerful, Orgrim is. Beckman teased evilly. After hearing this, Nightingale looked at Orgrim again, and Orgrim smiled ferociously, picked up the glass and took a sip, then waved his hand and said, I nothing great, just a mere talent, 150 million Baileys. The 50 million Baileys just now is already considered very powerful in this place. After all, this is the Gateway Sea area in the first half of the Grand Line. Even if there are pirates coming, most of them are newcomers from all over the world. Generally, there can be 10 million belly is pretty good. But the result is even better. There is a boss with 150 million berry sitting next to this pirate with 50 million belly. 150 million belly, all over the world, you can call yourself a big pirate. Nightingale felt like she had a toothache. Why did she pretend to be so sexy just now? Wouldn't it be nice to decline this invitation tactfully? You know they are pirates, why come here for a drink? Isn't this causing trouble for yourself? I suddenly remembered that I still had some things to do, so I'm sorry. I hope you two will meet again, Nightingale spoke quickly. Orgrim and Beckman both smiled and didn't really stop anything. They were just having fun and changing their boring lives. However, Orgrim still said in a wicked way, won't you drink the bitter melon juice that is as painful as life? Next time, definitely next time. Nightingale quickly waved her hand and said. Ha 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 ha, you are really interesting. Orgrim said with a laugh. Nightingale nodded with a forced smile, and then stood up, ready to leave the evil tavern where the big pirate was hiding. But as soon as he got up, the room in the tavern, the door was pushed open by another group of people. This group of people didn't look like good people. They were all arrogant and domineering, looking around as if they were looking for someone. Nightingale, who was about to leave just now, saw them. The leading guy immediately turned around and cursed his own misfortune. Orgrim and Beckman asked with a smile, what's matter? I suddenly felt that it was too rude for me to just walk away when the two of them invited me to drink juice. I had better finish my drink before leaving. Nightingale smiled awkwardly. Beckman glanced at the guys who broke in, and then asked, are those bastards looking for you? Nightingale did not deny or quibble, and whispered, yes, I am a pirate just like you, and you want me to treat their captain. That's it, why don't you go? Orgrim asked curiously. Again, I am a former doctor. Nightingale curled her lips and said. Beckman raised his eyebrows, then grinned and asked, if you don't mind, can you tell us why you became a former doctor? Drinking causes trouble and kills people. Nightingale was silent for a moment, and then spoke softly. Orgrim and Beckman heard the words and did not ask any more questions. For a while, the scene was a little awkward. Nightingale smiled again when he saw this, he opened his mouth and said it was all a year ago. It's nothing. So you don't want to be a doctor anymore? Beckman asked softly. Nightingale was silent for a moment, and then said, at least now, in no mood. It's just that someone died. What's the big deal? Orgrim enlightened. Nightingale glanced at Orgrim, and then said, perhaps I have seen more dead people than you, but the meaning is different. As a doctor, I was supposed to treat illnesses and save lives, but because of his own selfish desires, he was unable to control his alcohol addiction, causing patients who could have survived to die on my operating table. As a doctor, as a national doctor, this is really dereliction of duty. You have a pretty high sense of morality. Orgrim smiled and joked. No, it's professional guilt. If I had a high sense of morality, would I sit with you pirates? Drink bitter melon juice? Nightingale said with some self-deprecation. Makes sense, Beckman nodded. At this moment, the bartender came over cautiously, put down a glass of bitter melon juice, and said, Dr. Nightingale, your juice is here. If you need anything, please call me. After saying that, he quickly turned around and ran away. And those guys who were looking for someone seemed to have heard the words Dr. Nightingale he pronounced, and they unanimously surrounded the Orgrim trio. Here comes your trouble. Orgrim touched his chin and said. As a big pirate with 150 million belly, are you just going to sit back and watch them snatch away the friend you invited to drink bitter melon juice right in front of your eyes? Nightingale swallowed her saliva slightly nervously, picked up the bitter melon juice on the table and asked. What he said seems to make sense, Beckman. Orgrim looked at Beckman and asked. It makes some sense, but we are pirates, there are no restrictions, we can do whatever we want and watch a good show. Beckman smiled evilly and said. You too, can't you help me? Nightingale gritted his teeth and asked. He found that although the bounty was high, these two people at least did not appear vicious when chatting with him, and the people who came to him were really not easy to talk to. Pirates. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 40. After Orgrim and Beckman heard Nightingale's plea for help, they both had the same evil smile on their lips. This is really, someone actually asked us pirates for help. Orgrim said with a smile. But we pirates are not messengers of justice, Mr. Nightingale. Beckman also joked with a smile. Can't I just give you money? To be honest, I am quite wealthy. Nightingale said quickly. Do you think I am short of money? Orgrim patted Nightingale on the shoulder and asked with a wink. Nightingale was stunned for a moment. Yes, the big pirate with a bounty of 150 million baileys, will he lack such money? Do you two have any requirements? Nightingale calmed down and asked. Beckman smiled and said, you can't be a national doctor, and you accidentally killed someone, so you are not a good person anymore. Why don't you go to sea and become a doctor, pirate doctor? There happens to be a ship doctor missing on my ship. As the former chief medical doctor of a major medical country like the Drum Kingdom, he must have great medical skills, right? Why don't you be my partner? Orgrim also asked with a smile. This can be regarded as a temporary idea. If Nightingale had left smoothly just now, Orgrim and Beckman would have been a seasoning. But now he wants to let Orgrim and Beckman help save him, that's another matter. As Beckman said, they are pirates and are not messengers of justice. There is no need to shout when they see injustice and draw their swords to help something. Unless, there are certain benefits. In their opinion, Nightingale should be a very powerful doctor, otherwise he would not be the chief of the Drum Kingdom. It just so happened that this guy was quite interesting. After chatting for a while, I found that he got along quite well. So why not give it a try and trick him into boarding? Nightingale was also stunned after hearing what Orgrim and Beckman said. But soon, he came back to his senses and said, isn't it? Then I might as well go treat them once. You have to think carefully, will they let you, a guy with superb medical skills, come back? If you can't even cure your own captain's illness, either the ship's doctor is incompetent, or there is no ship's doctor at all, right? Do you think it's better to be forcibly taken to sea by them, or to go to sea freely with us? Beckman asked with a smile. Or rather, would the noble Dr. Norman Nightingale rather die than surrender? Orgrim also asked with a smile. Nightingale glanced at Orgrim and said, if I would rather die than surrender, why would I ask you pirates for help? So, it's up to you. Beckman raised his eyebrows and said this. Nightingale fell silent after hearing this. It seemed that this guy was very entangled. He probably regretted why he came to the pub today. He had obviously given up drinking. What are you doing here? This puts you in a dilemma now. But if you think about it carefully, you have been in a state of confusion for more than a year, not doing anything, and also having nowhere to go. You just wander around, and you are a little tired of it. If you can't find the direction in life, then you really want to go to sea and become a pirate? Anyway, as Mr. Beckman said, he is not a good person. How can a drunken bastard who goes to the operating table be a good person? And, you seem to get along quite well with these two pirates? I haven't had such a chat for at least a year. Is the scenery on the sea very good? Nightingale was silent for a while and then suddenly asked. Beckman and Orgrim both laughed when they heard this. Well, who knows, we have just gone to sea not long ago. If you want to know the answer, why don't you just go look for it yourself? Orgrim said with a smile. What you said makes some sense, Nightingale whispered softly. At this moment, the group of pirates also walked up behind Nightingale, and one of them, who looked like a leader, grabbed Nightingale on the shoulder. The search has been very hard for us, Dr. Nightingale. Our captain is feeling very uncomfortable right now. Come back with me to cure his illness, the pirate leader said with a ferocious smile. At the same time, Nightingale raised his head and looked at Orgrim, with a bright smile on his lips, and said, I will join, Orgrim, Captain. When Nightingale finished speaking, Beckman did not hesitate to pull out the short musket hanging from his waist, put it on the head of the pirate leader, and said, I advise you to so you can get your stinky hands off our ship's doctor's shoulders. The pirate leader was stunned, and then he put on a ferocious expression on his face and asked, Are you threatening me, you bastard? However, Beckman did not answer him. Instead, he pulled the trigger very naturally. The next moment, there was only a gunshot of bang, and Beckman shot the guy's head directly. The explosion spurted out blood. Nightingale was frightened, and the guy was so frightened that before he could say anything to complain about, Beckman said calmly, No, it's just a piece of advice. Vice Captain, several pirates shouted in horror. At the same time, the tavern was restless, and many guests began to flee. Gee ha 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 ha, Orgrim laughed evilly. This laughter seems a bit like a big pirate. Welcome to the Warhammer Pirates, Norman Nightingale, Doctor. Orgrim said with a laugh, and stood up at the same time. Wiping the blood stains on his face, Nightingale forced a smile and said, It's a former doctor. Yeah? It's up to you, Orgrim said as he raised his arm. As soon as he finished speaking, he punched the pirates in the air who had not yet reacted. The roar of the Dragon King, Orgrim shouted in a low voice. A powerful shockwave quickly appeared and wrapped around Orgrim's arm. The moment he waved his arm, he let out a shocking roar, like a giant dragon appearing in the world. Then, the shockwave that rushed out instantly destroyed most of the tavern, swept all the pirate minions in and buried them in the ruins. After the blow, Orgrim sat down with a laugh and looked at in this open-air tavern. He said, I think this environment is not bad, gee ha 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 ha. Cheers, Nightingale, ship's doctor. Beckman smiled, picked up the wine glass on the table, and signaled to Nightingale. Orgrim also picked up his own glass. At this time, Nightingale was already stunned. One punch. Destroyed half the tavern from the air? It seemed very casual and effortless at all. Should I say that you are worthy of being a great pirate with a bounty of 150 million belly? And Mr. Beckman, next time when you shoot, can you tell me first and give me some time to prepare mentally? Although there are thousands of thoughts in my heart, for some reason, Nightingale feels this long-lost sense of pleasure. Maybe I was born to be an evil pirate, doctor? Thinking of this, Nightingale picked up the bitter melon juice on the table, clinked glasses with Beckman and Orem with a smile, and said, "Regards, cheers, pirates." After that, he drank the bitter melon juice in one gulp, then threw the cup directly on the ground, smashed it into pieces, and said with a very aggrieved expression, "I swear, I never want to drink it again in this life. This thing is gone." "Didn't you agree to taste the pain of life?" Orgrim also drank the wine in the wine glass and asked with a smile. "If you become a pirate, shouldn't you be able to enjoy the good things?" Nightingale looked at Orgrim and asked. "Ha ha 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 ha, you are right." Orgrim responded with a laugh.